So the question is, what is the CSA? The CSA is a map, a number of short answer questions, T-chart comparison, an interpretation of a political cartoon, a bunch of short answers, and a short essay-ish. Yes, sir?
Is the political cartoon over World War I?
It is not over World War I.
World War II?
I will help you with that. All right. I know that you can all do the map of Europe, right?
Yep.
Okay. Can you do the map of Europe during World War II or World War I?
It's so much easier, guys. There's not like
Can you find in your book a map of Europe during World War I?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now. Guys have gotten into bad habits. Your book needs to come to class with you every day.
my ancestors.
7 of you here without your books. 8 of you here without your books.
9.
Not happy. Not happy. That one is perfect on page 461. Page 461 is perfect.
That's 4, Larry. Oh.
What on that map on page 461 do you suppose you might have to identify on a blank map?
Russia, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, Serbia.
Serbia.
Spain.
Ottoman Empire? UK.
Albania, Bulgaria,
Italy.
Probably not Serbia. Definitely Italy. I think I heard another one.
Ottoman Empire?
Yep.
Bulgaria.
Denmark,
Probably not. Probably not.
Luxembourg.
Possibly Luxembourg. Definitely not Switzerland. Not yes, Belgium. Why would Belgium be necessary and some of the others?
Because
Belgium
was
pretty much
Yeah, because that's where the Germans went
To invade.
through. Right. Again, not vital to World War One. Anything else on that map you might have to know?
Where the
Wellingtons are.
Not necessarily specifically where battles were, but
lines in which they got
City.
pushed back.
so where the
Trenches
where
are.
the fronts were. So both west and east. So you might have to kind of draw a line somewhere similar there. Now the western front is going to be pretty easy, right? The eastern front, there's some broad choices. Which one would you go with?
The one for Russia and Germany met.
Yeah, you go for the one in the middle where the front was most of the time, not the one that was furthest east where Germany had advanced all that way. You want to show the most typical one.
Wait, which one?
Why are you not writing any of this down? The test is tomorrow. That is not acceptable.
Which one?
You know this.
Which one would it be?
So I would go with the green and purplish kind of line in there on the eastern front. As long as you're in that neighborhood, pretty close, you're going to get credit. You might also want to know a body of water.
Mediterranean,
No, Mediterranean didn't play much in World War I.
North Sea.
Baltic Sea,
Atlantic Sea.
Atlantic.
Dardanelles.
Dardanelles would be a good one to have on this map, but we weren't that smart when we made the
The
test.
Rhine River.
Iranian Sea.
The Rhine River.
Did you read a lot
The English
about
Channel.
fighting on the Tyrrhenian Sea? English Channel.
Brandon was getting there.
Because he was just naming every body of water on the map, which is why I was ignoring him. Guessing doesn't get credit.
Unless you
All right. Now, I have a question for you. When you look at this map, and you look at the lines for the eastern front and the lines for the western fronts, okay? Why are the lines for the eastern front all right here? Or, I'm sorry, western front, all right here. Why are the lines for the eastern front from here to here?
Because early in the war, the Germans and the Allies got in a stalemate, and they formed a definite line that stayed the same for most of the war, didn't change a lot. On the Eastern Front, there's they didn't bunker down nearly as much, so the line moved a lot, and there was Austrian, Hungary, and Ottoman, and a lot of different other countries and random fights here and there.
Okay. Would you say the eastern front is larger geographically as well? So the armies are much more spread out, and it's harder to hold a single solid line, right? Okay. If you had to give me one noun to define the Western Front,
West.
no,
That's trench.
trench, right? That's another big reason that the Western Front didn't move, isn't it? Once you dig that trench,
You're not moving.
fairly easy to defend it and stay in it, right? And when they did shift, the guy who got backed up would dig himself a new trench, and the guy who moved forward would move into the old trench. Now, it's kind of backwards because things didn't connect, but it worked. So let me ask you, could you explain why trenches were dug on the Western Front and not on the Eastern Front?
Eastern front, the ground is really solid. Western front is
There's so much
easier to
more
dig out.
Okay, permafrost is going to come into it in the Eastern Front somewhat.
It's much more spread out. The armies just can't. Even if they were to dig trenches, it'd be hard to hold a line.
Yeah, look at how long that Eastern Front is. Look how long the Western Front is. This is dudes with trenching shovels. They're about this big. Okay? Real life trenching shovel. Gonna be, let's do it in color here. Do I have a brown? Do I have a brown? I don't have a brown. Okay, we'll call this brown. Real life trenching shovel. There's your handle. Oh, nice. Smartboard's got a problem. Okay. About a little thicker than a broom handle. Okay, think closet rod. You guys have wooden closet rods?
Yeah.
Okay, about like that.
I don't know the cause.
And then the head of the shovel.
There we go. There we go.
How much curve is there to this thing? Front edge, so we're looking at it this way, okay? Back edge. So it's not like your garden shovel that's pretty well rounded. This is as good as a weapon, as a club, as it is as a digging tool. It is about yay long, okay? And you have to dig a hole deep enough for you to stand in, and deeper. So, where's it easier to dig your trench? definitely on the Western Front, for sure, right? Plus, some of the trench line on the Western Front was already kind of there in a defensive posture left over from
Franco-Prussian War.
the Franco-Prussian War in 1870. Bravo. All right. So that trenching shovel is your friend.
You can't shovel Grayson.
Okay.
I like it.
Since we're talking about World War I, let's do some recent review. We've already talked about, we're getting ready to talk about in Chapter 16 how totalitarian governments rise. Does anybody know what a totalitarian government is? Grayson?
They control everything and they want no more.
Yeah, they control everything, virtually every aspect of their people's lives. Those leaders are going to rise to power. Anybody have an example of one of them?
Stalin.
Hitler,
Mussolini.
Stalin, Mussolini. There's three great examples. There's another one that you've already talked about in the East. Hirohito in the East. He hasn't risen to power. He was born the emperor, but he's totalitarian as well. Those folks rise to power, and what do they know? What big party do we know they're about to start? You guys have already had this in American history. What's the big party? It's coming. Major celebration. Everybody goes to Europe to join in.
World War II.
Thank you. World War II. Maybe not so much a party? No? Okay. All right. Well, I figure when everybody shows up, it must be a party.
No, it was kind of
Okay.
dirty.
So, if we know that World War II begins in Europe in 1939, and World War I ended in Europe when?
1918.
When?
November 23rd. November 11th.
11/11 at 11 a.m. 1918. So how many years is that? 4 years between World War I and World War II?
Oh, I think you meant home. No, over 20.
16.
It's over 20.
39 minus 18.
Is 9?
21.
11. Don't let me answer. 19 years.
Oh, woe is our NISA math score.
21.
Holy cow.
Okay, just whatever.
I keep saying
Thank you, Miss
about
Yep.
23 or so.
Go ahead and go next.
What's this about?
So, 21 years, just shy of 21, because we're going from November 11th to September 1st. Okay? So, 21 years. Remember, World War I was known as the war to end all wars. And 21 years later, it's World War I Part 2. We've got a really bad sequel on our hands. So, could it be said that the Treaty of Versailles was a massive success?
No.
Could it be said that it was a failure?
Yes.
Could you come up with some specific ways in which it failed?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you said that. For instance,
World War II.
now, specific ways that the treaty failed. What was wrong with the treaty that led to World War II coming?
It humiliated Germany so much where they were really motivated to start World War II.
Let's get more specific. In what ways was Germany humiliated? What? So the war guilt clause. There was an actual line in the treaty which said, it's all our fault. And Germany had to sign off on that. What else? There's another big one. Yeah, the massive reparations. And the huge debt that those created, right? Okay. Another big reason.
Military reduction.
The League of Nations. Why? Wait a minute. The League of Nations is a peacekeeping organization. It's where everybody can go and meet to talk and avoid this, and yet you're telling me that the League of Nations is a cause of World War II? It's a failure? I'm so confused. Andrew, help me out.
The League of Nations had no military power. They can only talk.
And they didn't allow everyone to come.
What? Who didn't get to go?
Russia?
Africa.
So rude to have a party and not invite all your classmates. So rude. Remember those elementary school parties where you had to invite everybody?
Yeah.
All right. What else? There's one other big problem with the League of Nations. What?
The U.S.
Made it, yeah. The U.S. wasn't part of it. And who still had guns?
The U.S.
The U.S. still had guns. Okay. There were some nations that still had guns, but overall, the Washington Naval Conference that followed World War I limits arms. But that should be a good thing, right? What president do we know pretty much killed himself trying to get the U.S. to be part of the League of Nations? Woodrow Wilson. Good. You guys learned something last year, too? Excellent. Grayson, you got another problem with the Treaty of Versailles?
No, I don't know.
There are more problems with the Treaty of Versailles. Who did it ignore completely?
Africa.
And? Well, it didn't ignore the Middle East. But what had Woodrow Wilson gone in saying? He said he wanted to make peace for all time. And he said that everybody ought to have self-determination. And so he's talking about self-determination, and then in the Middle East, what do we get? What did they do to the Middle East? How'd they divide it up? What did they call those territories, those pieces they divided the Middle East into? Close. Not protectorates, mandates. The Western powers, Britain, France, the U.S. said, oh, you cute little Middle Eastern nations, you can't possibly govern yourselves. Because remember, the Ottoman Empire had fallen apart, and they were a big power there. And the Europeans stick out their rulers with their nice straight lines, and they drew all those wonky borders in the middle of the desert. Remember how we've talked about how those borders are so difficult? Because they don't make any sense. It's not like, oh, I'm crossing the Missouri, I must be in a new state. It's like if on the way to Lincoln, you're crossing a county line. How do you know you did? Oh. Well, there are signs every 3 feet in the middle of the Middle Eastern deserts, right? Now, if there weren't a sign alongside the interstate, you wouldn't know you were in a new county, right? Except when you cross the Platte River. Then you're in a new county. Okay? There were some countries that fought in World War I that thought they were going to get some stuff. Okay, Italy. Japan. They got bupkis. I like bupkis. I'm going to go with nada because I'm not sure how I would write bupkis.
Where are we?
We're talking about failures of the Treaty of Versailles.
All right. Okay.
Italy and Japan got zilch. And remember, Italy had worked so hard to wait to figure out which side to jump in on so they could be on the winning side. And then they got nothing. Do you remember me telling you about that little fella from Vietnam who showed up at Versailles to try and talk to the people about that self-determination thing? We never got in to talk to him. His name was Ho Chi Minh. Well, that doesn't come back to bite the world in the hiney later on, does it?
No.
Not at all. Okay. Self-determination, but not for you, or you, or you, or you. You stop looking at me funny. No self-determination for you either. Yep. No. Simply because you said you do, you don't. No self-determination for you either. Okay. In fact, we'll take Germany's colonies and we'll divide them up amongst the winners. No self-determination for them either. They shouldn't have been colonies of losing countries. Yeah. Any other failures of the Treaty of Versailles?
It made this guy called Adolf Hitler mad.
Well, we did already talk about Germany being upset. In the whole Germany thing, let's talk specifically about some more damages that it did to Germany beyond the War Guilt Clause and the reparations.
They lost.
Yeah.
They had to reduce the size.
So Germany lost, let's specifically talk about the Ruhr River Valley. This is where the coal mines are. This is where factories are. This is the heart of Germany's economy. This is what Germany has that makes stuff. And the Treaty of Versailles took the Ruhr Valley and said, this is under France's control now. Okay. I'm going to give you an example. Larry, I know you and your little friends were playing baseball in the street last night, and you hit your baseball through Whittle McGonagall's window next door. You didn't confess immediately. You lied to me when I asked if you did it. You were in big trouble, young man. You must pay to replace that window. I have the bill right here from AAA Window. It's $150. Oh, and by the way, as additional punishment, no allowance for you, Larry. And I'm taking away your car, so you're going to have to quit your job. I want your plan for how you're going to pay Widow McGonagall's window replacement.
No, that's impossible.
They took Germany's allowance. They took Germany's ability to make money to pay the debt back. Would you be a little disheartened if you're Larry? I would just crawl on the floor of my closet and cry. How am I ever going to get out of this hole? And now Widow McGonagall hates me and she used to bring me cookies. So, separate story. All right. Let's take some of Prussia's old land, because we really know. I mean, Bismarck was Prussian, right? And he's the one who united Germany, and it was only after the unification of Germany that we started having all these problems with the Franco-Prussian War and this whole World War I thing. And so let's punish the Prussians specifically. I know how. Let's take a bunch of land out of northeast Germany that used to be Prussian, and let's make a whole new country out of that and some land we got from the Russians because they welched on their agreement and walked out on the war. Let's create a whole new country called Poland. Why is that such a big deal? Poland used to exist. Remember talking about Poland under Catherine the Great and the partitions of Poland? There were 3 of them. They kept dividing them up between Russia and Prussia. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so let's think. Historically, that land that is Poland used to be Poland until it was taken from Poland by Russia and Prussia. So the Treaty of Versailles says we're going to give that land back to Poland from Russia and Prussia. And yet that is a huge part of what Adolf Hitler talks about. We need to bring the Germans back home into the homeland. Ignore that bell. Ignore that bell. That's an oopsie. Because we're not going to advisement. Well, should the Germans have been there, they took it fair and square from the Poles, and it was taken fair and square back from them. But it is this shifting of land and territory that becomes a sore point, right? Okay. Dalton, you've got an older brother. Whether he actually exists or not, you have an older brother now. He went away to college. He's graduating in May. When he left 4 years ago, your parents said, Dalton, you can have his room. You moved into his room. Sad news for you. Your older brother is coming back after 4 years. He hasn't actually graduated, doesn't have any real skills, he doesn't have a job. He's moving back in with you, and guess what? He gets his room back. How sore, how salty is Dalton? Right? Dalton pretty salty about this? Yeah. But it's my room. But it didn't used to be. It's been 4 years. It's been 40 years. Doesn't matter. Because who makes the rules? Dalton's parents, the winning side. Right? Okay. One other chunk of territory goes by two names because it's two territories. But we talk about them together. Alsace-Lorraine. This chunk of territory was French. But the French lost it in the Franco-Prussian War. The Germans had it. The French, remember, for them, this Treaty of Versailles is all about getting even. It's all about revenge. So, they make sure that in the Treaty of Versailles, the Alsace and Lorraine come back to France.
Are there French people living there?
Oh, yes.
Well, good.
Yeah. But there's also now German people, because it's been 50 years. Uh-oh. It's about to get messy, because guess what? When Hitler talks about bringing people back home to the fatherland, this is going to be some of the land he talks about, too. I will tell you this. Today, the Alsace and Lorraine are French. Today. When you go to towns in Alsace and Lorraine, you walk down the street signs are in German and in French. You sit down in a restaurant, and the menu is German and French, German and French, German and French. Sat in a restaurant, had the most unique meal I've ever had. And in Europe, when you go, there's not an Applebee's on every corner. Okay, you eat in the local restaurants. And usually you eat the cuisine of that region. If you're in Bavaria, you're having schnitzel. Okay? If you go to the Czech Republic, you're going to have yourself some sauerkraut and some dumplings. Okay? In the Alsace, in this wonderful little village, sat in a restaurant, and I had a dessert of the most amazing strudel. What country would strudel be associated with? German. Oh my gosh, strudel with fresh, heavy with cream. Oh, it was amazing. Started the meal with some fruit-loaded crepe, which would be French. And had the most interesting entree ever. It was a schnitzel covered in a heavy French cream sauce. Things that should, by region, never be together on the same plate. Most wonderful meal. Second most wonderful meal I've ever had in Europe anywhere. At a little basement restaurant in Prague, just outside the Jewish quarter. Pork loin slices, potato dumplings, gravy, homemade cream of asparagus soup, and a carrot cake-ish sort of thing for dessert where the frosting was like air, but wonderful. Anyway, I could have eaten that meal 3 times over right that night. It was amazing. And a little quartet playing local Slovakian dances and stuff. It was neat. Okay. The point is, Alsace and Lorraine have flipped back and forth so many times that today their very identity is both German and French. They don't have, a singular identity. Yes.
Like in the schools, do they teach French, or like do they speak in French, or do they speak in German?
Okay, in most schools throughout Europe, you're going to learn your country's language and English. And then you'll pick a third language, or a second language to learn. And in the territories of Alsace-Lorraine and in many southwestern German territories, you also learn French as an obligatory additional language.
So you're learning four languages.
Yes. We're actually having dinner tomorrow night with our friends who are from Versailles. I've mentioned them several times to you guys. They're in town. We're taking them to Mexican. But Jean-Michel speaks Portuguese. He's from France, so he speaks Portuguese, English, French, German, Italian, and Czech. Fluently. All. It is awesome. It is awesome. Okay. What? Well, that's why he can get a job pretty much anywhere he wants in Europe, because he can travel and do business anywhere. Oh, did I say Spanish? Spanish too.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah. He keeps trying to talk me into a trip to the Amazon. Big bugs. Not happening. All right. If I asked you, could you give me the 4 causes of World War I? Nationalism. Militarism. Imperialism.
Alliances.
Entangling alliances. Right. 3 isms and an uns. Nationalism, militarism, imperialism, entangling alliances. You must be able to regurgitate those. Probably for the rest of your lives.
In the future, we'll have planetarism, loyalty to your home planet.
Galaxyism.
Yeah.
All right.
That'll probably be the
So if we know the causes of World War I, we should know the causes of the Russian Revolution as well. Yes. You must know them. I am sorry. The Tsar is incompetent. Yes.
He tries to be smart.
Doofus would be kind. Right. He's actually a fairly smart man. He just is indecisive.
Hey, Doofus was actually a real guy.
When he leaves St. Petersburg and goes to the front, who does he leave in control?
He's incompetent.
His German princess wife, who the people don't love, right? And she is under the sway of their mystical friend, Rasputin, who the people love and that don't adore in any way. In fact, they're pretty sure that there's something pretty hanky going on between Alexander and Rasputin, and they don't like that one bit. Alexander makes decisions that people disagree with. Russia is doing very well. Oh, massive losses in World War I. Massive losses. And just a few years before, Russia had gotten itself into a little conflict on its far eastern border with Japan in the Russo-Japanese War. And that went very poorly as well. Yes, sir.
Wasn't it so bad for them, for Russia during World War I, that they were sending troops without weapons?
Yes. And the order was, you'll find weapons on the battlefield, just take them off the corpses. And don't forget to search the pockets for bullets.
That's a weird.
Except that the problem was, the first thing the soldiers were searching the pockets for wasn't bullets, it was bread.
Yeah.
Very often, there was nothing in the pockets because the rats had gotten to the corpses and would go and eat through the pockets first, eat the bread, and then the corpses, and so they'd have to go through the mud and the dirt and stuff and look for the bullets that had fallen out of the pockets. There's a great mental picture for you. Lovely. Who are the two sides in the Russian Civil War that erupts?
Reds and whites.
Oh, you can do better than reds and whites. Bolsheviks. And I can't write in white, so we'll do it in black. See, now that hiccup line went away. Weird. The Bolsheviks are the reds, the Mensheviks are the whites. Who believes in what? Bolsheviks are communists and change everything now. Mensheviks are socialists, they're nationalistic, and they are, we need to change, but let's do it slowly. Could you name new weapons from World War I? Tanks.
Long-range artillery.
Long-range artillery.
Fire machine guns.
Poison gas, the machine gun,
German U-boats.
U-boats.
Jet planes.
Wow,
Zeppelins.
thank you.
Led Zeppelins.
Zeppelins. Yes.
Zeppelins are awesome.
All right. Nationalism as one of those causes of World War I. What are the things that make a people nationalistic? Common culture. Common culture. Why are you guys Monarchs fans?
Because we're surrounded by monarchs.
Because you're surrounded by it. Because it is in your environment. You've been raised as monarchs. If you came through La Vista Junior, you were monarchs. Right? Your elementary schools would come up here for your programs and events and stuff. How many of you are Husker fans? Yeah. Why? For many of you, it's because that's what your parents are. It's because that's where you've been raised. It's because every Saturday people look at you funny if you're not wearing red. Right? Every Saturday for a few months in the fall. Right? Okay. So nationalism is about that common culture. What else?
Same language.
Common language. It is hard for us to find our common points if we don't speak the same language.
Common food.
Common food actually does have a lot to do with it. Yes?
Common religion.
Bless you, my son. Yes, common religion. Very much so. Which is why we still have problems in regions like the Balkans and in many places in the Middle East where they may be Muslim, but they are different sects of Muslim. And when Christians fight, and have fought in the past, it was because, well, they're all Christians, but different kind of sect of Christianity.
Your type of religion and your type of Christianity.
My God is better than your God, and my God said you have to die.
So die.
All right? In the Africa chapter. Thank you. I looked it up last night and now I've forgotten.
I'm floating.
How's that feel, huh?
Yes, 396. That political cartoon on the left-hand side. That is a gentleman by the name of Cecil Rhodes. He was a British explorer. He explored a lot of South Central Africa. In fact, what you know as Botswana today used to be a territory called Rhodesia. Rhodesia, Rhodes. Wow, the guy was so important they named a huge chunk of territory after him. In that picture, what's going on? Well, what else did Cecil Rhodes do in Africa for the European colonies, for the British colonies there? He helped to connect them. Do you remember talking about Muhammad Ali in Egypt and his modernization of Egypt? Well, how was he able to do that? Because the British were backing him. Cecil Rhodes, what's he holding up there? Well, he's got his safari helmet, his pith helmet in his hand, but what else? Those aren't puppet strings, but that's a very good thought. I actually didn't know this. Ms. Novacek educated me on this. Would you like to tell them what Cecil Rhodes did?
He put telecommunication lines throughout his two different colonies so they could talk on either end of it.
He connected southern Africa with northern Africa by telegraph. And so he is essentially in that drawing being the telegraph pole. holding up the lines. Okay. But you could theoretically look at it as puppet strings, and he is making Africa move at his whim, right? Okay. Spend some time looking at that drawing, read that little box, think about it. I think we're done. I thought we were done now. Must be another 5 minutes. Must be another 5 minutes. All right. What else can we go over? Hitler did love dogs, which makes it ironic that he tested his cyanide capsule on his beloved Alsatian. Yeah, I'm... What? I gotta leave something off for them to think about. Huh? All right. Well, I'm going to give you 4 minutes, I guess, to think on this on your own. There is no current event quiz this week because you want to have bell to bell. Remember, full and complete answers. The less information you give, the less points you can earn. Fully explain your answers. Read the instructions. When you come in tomorrow, we'll be standing at the door for your phone and giving you the CSA so you get maximum time. There will be no extra time.